Hello, this is my look at the LEGO Star Wars Boba Fett Starship set. In addition to the Slave One itself and the Mandalorian version of Boba Fett, this also comes with one version of Din Djarin, an old school style of 1x2 carbonite block, and this is a little repulsor lift ground maintenance craft. I'll show you those things later. From initial official photos of this, I thought the ship was going to end up looking a little bit underdeveloped, a little bit low resolution, but it's actually rather the opposite. I am shocked at just how good this looks from every angle. There's a lot of effort that went into sculpting the shapes to make it look right, to make its silhouette as close to correct as possible to the source material from every single angle. Now, at a small size like this, the designer was surely limited by parts, just part availability in the LEGO inventory. I didn't look to see if there were any parts that were specifically recolored this season, but I personally know that these macaroni pieces here, these bow pieces, the 3x3s, are relatively new parts in the LEGO inventory, and I don't know if dark green is new for this season in particular. The one thing that's definitely off is the size of the canopy relative to the rest, but it's not too bad. That was limited certainly by part availability and also the need to get a figure to sit in there. And the figure is able to sit both ways for both orientations of this. Color blocking is very good, and the level of detail is shockingly good. It really helps me to understand a little bit better the price of this. Of course, we'll talk more about value later on, but building this up felt like a relatively advanced thing. It felt like a lot of pieces went into a small space, and that made it feel better to me. That made it feel more serious, more advanced, less toy-like, or more like an advanced toy, I suppose, or collector item. The cockpit area is fairly simple, and unfortunately the figure does need to sit with the arms raised like that in this configuration, and there's just a printed console at the front. However, he does have a little bit more room when you orient him this way, and there's still space for the canopy to come down fully. And this does have the classic Kenner toy action feature with the gravity self-orienting little winglets on the sides, so those will change like that. Even though this is a relatively small model, it still made sure that would work properly. You don't have to manually orient those. And then you have access here to a couple of stud shooters, which are pretty well integrated. And then there are these down here, which don't actually shoot, but you can change the angles of them. I was surprised that these aren't as finicky down here. These cannons are not as finicky as I really expected. They don't fall off too easily. Of course, you can't manhandle them as small as they are, but the part choice and the assembly is more than good enough. Speaking of which, again, just the overall look of this, its overall proportions and shape, that's all really good. In spite of this thing being as tiny as it is, this is pretty proper. Like, this is not just something for people who remember generally, like, there's some red and then there's some green and some wings. No, this is designed for folks who remember the Slave One in particular and a lot of its details, who will appreciate the color blocking, the smaller details, the little dark orange inside of here, and coming around the back. So they've got suggestions of multiple of the engines and thrusters there. A little bit of greebling done on the underside, which wasn't absolutely necessary, but is definitely appreciated. And right here, this is a fold-out handle for you, a simple handle so that you can fly it around like this. You don't have to hold it the way that I've been holding it. This just makes it a little bit more remote, and it's really tied into the center structure of the whole thing. So it gives you good control for the sake of play, because after all, this is primarily a toy, and I think it does a good job of being a toy. Speaking of which, almost every Slave One toy ever made would hold a single figure in the cockpit and then one additional thing back here in a small cargo bay in the form of a carbonite block. And this has you covered for that as well. So the carbonite block will fit in there. And this is the old style, the original Lego style, in the form of a 1x2x5 brick. Now this one has a sticker on it compared to the old print for the first Han Solo in carbonite that they ever did. But this one shows a Gamorrean of some sort, which I think is just a very, very slight teaser of somewhere we're going in Season 3. This little repulsor cart may seem slightly frivolous to include with the set, just bumping up the price a little bit by including some extra pieces, but this has multiple uses. You put a person in there, they can be operating it from the front. It's a stand-up thing. Got the inverted round tiles on the underside so it can slide around and looks like it's hovering a little bit, but this is just the perfect size to carry one of these around. Now, of course, the carbonite blocks typically have their own repulsors in them for transport, but this will allow you to transport it more quickly, and the ladder comes down there to kind of help secure it in as well. You can also use the ladder to access the ship. I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch, but you can see doing some maintenance on these cannons or something from there. Most importantly, though, by far, this functions as a vertical presentation stand for the entire ship. Now, there's no hard connection in there, so this isn't the most stable thing. If you have this, let's say, on a very small table in the middle of a room that has carpet and, there's a lot of vibration when you walk by, there is a chance that this could fall off. But there's a decent amount of stability there. But just know that, it's not a permanent solution necessarily unless you've got it on a regular heavy bookcase or a wall shelf or something like that. But this is just nice. This is just deluxe to have this included in the set. It's they never have stands, or almost never have stands, for things that aren't UCS level of size. So I really appreciate this, because if you want to see this ship like that, you don't have to add your own pieces. You don't have to do a custom solution for it. And again, this does double as an in-universe little thing. So, a little cart you can use for play or whatnot. So I'm very, very happy with that. And it's much better than I would have ever expected or asked for this size of set. Looking at the figures up close here, the graphic design work is very good. However, there are some issues with production. First of all, on the left, look at that arm printing for Boba Fett on both sides. But there's a lot of smudging there, and the yellow is not nearly as opaque as I would like to see it. The red is actually a metallic red. I think it's red printed over some silver, if I'm not mistaken, which is good. But again, it's not opaque enough. I really like the fact that they split the belt for a Boba or the printing for it, between the torso and the hips, so you don't have just a blank area going through there. The robes are good. The yellow printed onto the knees is pretty decent. The helmet is done very well. And once again, this is the full Beskar version on the right of Din Djarin, so he's got all the arm printing on there, and that's done pretty well. However, I got particularly unlucky with my Din Djarin helmet here. That helmet, in addition to having the issues that I've previously mentioned about its design work, particularly the center stripe being too thick, this one's actually printed too low, which makes it look completely different. It makes it look like a different character, or maybe from a different era or something. It's interesting. I'm definitely gonna keep it. I'm kind of glad in a way to have that because of its uniqueness. But obviously it is technically a misprint, and that is pretty obvious. The prints on the backs of the torsos are pretty good. The designs are nice, and they went above and beyond with this new Boba head because it actually has scars around the back. I feel like Boba didn't really need, well, at least as we've seen him thus far on The Mandalorian, he did not really need a second expression. So having just this one, which is new and exclusive to him, is good. But then also having additional detail around the back is just again, a little extra deluxe, a little better than it really needed to be. But this face looks pretty respectable for a Legoification of him in his current form, or most recent form. I do think we're getting close to time to start having a head for Din Djarin, though. We've seen him helmet off enough times now that I think we can retire the mysterious no face reveal yet, just plain black head version, and start including something new and exclusive for him as well. The leftovers and spares for the set include some extra studs for the stud shooters on the ship, and the rest of the pieces for the helmet add-on parts that just always comes as a full pack. And this is what the sticker sheet looks like once spent. So, there clearly were a fair number of stickers used in this, but I think they were pretty important. However, you can leave them off and it doesn't look terrible. I paid $50 US for this, which is its standard retail price as of release, and it comes with a little shy of 600 pieces. So the price to part ratio looks fantastic for it. In spite of the fact that the amount of stuff here, it doesn't appear to be that great. However, like I mentioned earlier, when you build this, you feel the complexity. So, this to me, to my eyes, does not look like $50 worth of stuff, standard, in just by normal standards for Lego. However, having built it recently enough to remember the process, it took a while, and the level of detail is definitely there. And when you look carefully, you see the stuff is there. This is a perfect example of the long-term trend of Lego sets getting smaller and smaller and significantly more complex. But here I think it works out pretty well. Now, keep in mind that this is part of the new series that they've been doing for the past year or so of smaller and cheaper versions of Star Wars, in particular, ships and such. But this is a direct descendant of the ship that motivated that entire series that has included the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter and the Lambda shuttle. Because Lego came right out, I don't still have the exact quote right now, but a Lego design team member came right out and said that they were specifically inspired by the reviews of the Cloud City set and the small Slave One in that. And what reviewers said about that, and what viewers said in response to those reviews about that, and how we were all perfectly happy with the smaller version of the Slave One because it looked really cool. Although in retrospect, I now feel like this looks much more cool and is a more advanced design, to be sure. But it looked cool and it did everything that you needed it to do. So why sell significantly larger things on the market that keep getting more and more and more and more and more expensive at that, when you can offer up something that will be perfectly good, will work for kids and for collectors both, and just not destroy our wallets to the same degree. Speaking of which, I don't still have that version from Cloud City, but I do have this version. So this will help you to see just how much of a difference in size there is here. This is the 20th anniversary version. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. All right, let me get the handle out for this one. There we go. And the handle out for this one as well, the little miniature handle. There we go. Okay. We're practically doing it live here, but it's a significant difference in size, right? If you had the choice between the two, which one would you go with? I'd say almost everybody would go with this. This is more smooth. It's a little bit more accurate in many ways. It's just cooler. However, this costs $120 US. This costs $50. $120 versus $50. So there you go. That's what we're dealing with here. And I personally am happy that they've done this. It's unfortunate that I think the human eyes don't see the full value here at first, especially if you do a comparison like this. And let's not even talk about the Ultimate Collector Series version. But just looking at this, like, I want this. The brain says, I want this. But this costs more than 2.5 times as much as this. So I get it. And again, I appreciate the fact that Lego actually listened to reviewers, actually listened to viewers, and responded by changing their entire strategy to continue to offer some things, or to again offer some things up on the market for folks who are not completely rich. Because not all of Lego fans are completely rich and just, flush with funds, disposable funds, to get UCS versions of every single thing. I think it's very important that Lego continue to offer relatively affordable toys on the market, as long as the quality is good, as long as they look good. And I feel like they've really succeeded with this. This could have been not so good. And if they had just done what I originally asked and re-released the Master Builder Series Cloud City version of the Slave One, it would not have been as good as this. If they had sold it at the same prices as this, $50 US, wouldn't have worked out. I would not have been happy with that. That one needed to be like a $35 set, something like that. This one, at first glance, I could see being a $40 set, honestly. But then you include that and the build process and the level of detail, I can see it. I can see the value here. So overall, I'm satisfied with this. I'm happy with the build. The production work needs to be improved on the figures, but give us more reasonable sized, lower cost things that look good on display and still make good toys. Go. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you again, of course, very soon.